at if you think you're here for this Empowered Wellness for Every Woman workshop, then you're in the right place. It is my intention to deliver to you, in the very least, 5 essential tools to take your power back. And just a little, give you a little bit of a rundown, how I want to spend our time today is outlining the problem with the modern narrative around healthcare. I think that's a really important piece to call out, to uncover the cost of it, of that miseducation and disconnection, to compare 3 different approaches to healthcare, to define holistic health and healing, and then to showcase those 5 tools for empowered wellness, and then to give you a lived experience. Like at some point throughout this workshop, I think it's important to not just talk about things, not just to have the knowledge up here, but things change in our lives when we put things into practice. So we're going to do a tiny practice today, and then I will give you an invitation to an upcoming workshop and workshop series that I'm going to be doing. That's what we'll end with. So, so this is me. My name is Jessica Graham Robinson. Sometimes you'll see it as Graham, sometimes you'll see it as Robinson, sometimes you'll see it as both. I am a mother of 2 boys. And as you can see, a couple of these pictures are kind of old. The one in the middle is more recent. But I am a holistic health practitioner. I'm an Ayurvedic practitioner. I'm a dancer, a yogi, a creator, an artist, a mystic, a teacher, and probably one of the biggest defining pieces for me is that I'm a perpetual student. I am always, it's like the realm that I love to be in, is to study, is to continue to learn. And so I'm always kind of evolving, and maybe you are too, but it's a nice way to be, that you are constantly evolving into a place that, is different, is new and different from maybe where you came from. I grew up in rural South Carolina. I've lived up north, I've lived out west, and I've gone all over the place in my path. And it's really kind of cool at each stage to be able to see that, because we all know that everything you've been through up until this point has gotten you to where you are. So whether those things are amazing, lovely things, or things that you'd sometimes rather forget, they are nonetheless, they define you, and they are the steps which made it so that you could get to where you are today. So we have to have gratitude for those things, without which we would not be where we are and having the realizations that we have. So moving on, I think, where's the next slide? Okay, thought I was moving on. So what's going on with this slide? There it goes. Nope, that's not it. There we go. So earlier on in the spring, I did a live workshop with a group of women out in nature. And it was really, really cool to connect with so many different women, and something that I think has been missing a lot from my life, certainly, but just in general in culture, just the opportunity for us to be individuals that empower one another, that we come together in ways where we're collaborating, where we're being beginner mind, where we don't have to have the answers, where we can evolve together and just really feel loved and heard and felt, and create this collective sisterhood where we're able to just be who we are. And as we evolve, we change and grow together. So that wanted to just showcase that. So getting right down to it, one of the things that the biggest 2 pieces that I can point to that I think has led us to where we are these days is, 1, the miseducation or lack of education, both and then a complete disconnection. And these two kind of go hand in hand. And however you see those or experience them together, they really bring us to a place of disempowerment. So like in our healthcare, in our lives as women, or just as humans, really, everyone deals with this. There, if you're not doing something to educate and connect, then you most likely are living in a place of disempowerment. And the miseducation is like the Western model of health is a false story. It's called healthcare, but it's really not healthcare. It's really sick care. It's a model that's symptom driven, and one where people are just chasing band-aids. I don't know about you, but I know in my own life, there's so many people that I can point to who might have a symptom show up or something that's discomfortable or uncomfortable in their lives. And then the first thing that they do is take an ibuprofen or, do something that's going to mask the symptoms. And then if that doesn't do it, like, because they're just looking to ignore it. And then if that doesn't do it, then they're going to move on to eventually, if it gets bad enough, or if they feel bad enough about taking so much ibuprofen or whatever the thing is, they're going to maybe go to a doctor. They're going to seek someone outside of themselves. And in that case as well, the Western model of healthcare is one where they're looking at your symptoms. It's really just about your symptoms, and then finding what is the thing that's going to make the symptoms stop. It's not looking for a root cause. It's not taking all of you into consideration. It's just a Band-Aid, because knowing what I know about how the body works, when you just make a symptom go away, the body is going to figure out another way to tell you that something's wrong. And so you're literally chasing Band-Aids at that point and not getting better, but getting worse. And I already said, lack of education, wrong education. Like, seriously, it should be that if children are going to a school system or whatever school that they're going to, that part of an education is being a human. And so there's a lot that's lacking in the education system, or, even in the hands of most adults. So it's hard for them to teach their own children if they don't know, because we're part of this model where we've been disempowered, and it's a really long standing generation after generation after generation. It's a long standing pattern that has been in effect for hundreds of years at this point. So it's not anyone's fault per se, but we're in this perfect storm, I would say. When you go to a doctor, another thing, like, they're looking at the symptoms, but what are they doing? Not looking at the whole, they're looking at pieces. So if you have, like, this is why we have so many specialized doctors, right? You like go to an ear, nose, throat person, or you go to a gynecologist, or you go to osteopath, or, there's all these different, I meant to say like orthopedic, but there's all these different places you go, and they're not talking to one another. They're just picking apart the body and looking at this system or that system or a certain part of the body. And when we do that, it's like looking at something under a microscope. It's not that that's completely false, but you have to also be able to zoom out and see the bigger picture, because zooming in and looking at one part isn't really going to tell you a whole lot. That's the kind of mentality that's going to make you look at an anthill and think that it's a mountain, when we zoom into something and that's all you see. It's not ever going to be the answer, because the answer is, like, truth is something much bigger than one part that we zoom into. So there's disintegration and there's confusion, because there's this external authority that we're going to, and we don't have the whole picture. So it's really just a place where there's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of relying on external sources for some kind of an answer to a question that, is not even really getting answered. So that's, to me, that's the miseducation part. The disconnection part is also part of a very long-standing pattern where living, as we got more and more civilized as a culture, you could say, and I'm making sure to use quotes for that, as we get more civilized, we come to a place where we're not looking at nature or even our internal nature or our connection to source or family or spirit or truth even to find answers. We're, again, going back to the other model, we're looking outside of ourselves for something. And we're taught, as people in general, but also specifically as women, one example, we're taught to ignore the fact that we have a period, to ignore the fact that we are literally, our hormone levels are changing every week and every day of the month, so that it's, if we were living in a way that was aligned with how our bodies work, how our minds work, how we work together as an organism, we wouldn't be trying to live in a way where every day is 9 to 5 or whatever, insert your own hours there, but we wouldn't be living in a way that's dictated by external things, by schedules, by productivity that is got to be the same every day. We would really be living from a place that changes. Like if our being is shifting a little bit, then we'd be looking at things like the moon cycle and our own hormonal changes that we're going through as the answer of, oh, what do I need to know about myself so that I can be more productive this month? So then you're going to be more productive during that phase where you're ovulating and that time around there. Then there's, that you're going to need to slow down at other times of the month. And so there's just a whole lot, when we plug into what's real and what's true about ourselves and about the actual rhythms of nature, we're going to be connected in a way that gives us strength and resilience instead of just covering up the whole thing. So this disconnection from ourselves, this disconnection from spirit and source, whatever that may mean to you, the disconnection from our own power, the isolation, disconnection from community in so many ways, it makes us ungrounded, and it makes us feel like we don't have that or we don't have that connection to our intuition. We're not as confident. We're more doubting because we haven't learned to trust ourselves and our own rhythms and what we know is right. And living in this way that's completely ungrounded and constantly moving around based on electronics and alarms and schedules disrupts our nervous system. We're, from the time that lights were invented, from the time that we had the ability to turn on a light at any time of day and basically trick ourselves into thinking that it's daylight and we can be productive and we can do anything. From that moment, a lot shifted for people, humans, and it was very disruptive to the nervous system. But since then, it's just gotten a lot worse as we are so connected to screens these days, especially like the smaller devices that we're carrying around with us. And just so much like that disrupts our nervous system on a daily basis. That, along with the fact that we're disconnected, we don't have that connection to the voice inside of us that is telling us to slow down or say no or drink more water or go to the bathroom or make a different choice based on what's best for us versus someone else. So all of those things make us feel disconnected. And when we are disconnected, there's a devaluation of ourselves involved in that, and our own innate ability to heal and to know what's right. And that alone is going to affect, I mean, the nervous system, we already said it, but that alone is going to affect your mind, your emotions, your stress points, and how you handle whatever life is throwing at you. So that's already, disconnection is already setting us up for dis-ease. This is a model that I made. I made this, a model of the modern narrative on health and healing. So in this model, people are, you might as well just be spinning around on a merry-go-round. You're just like this helpless person kind of searching outside for answers and not ever thinking to look within. And then as long as we don't have a diagnosis, in general, that's thought to be health, right? As long as there's nothing that we can point to, we haven't had to go see anyone. So let's say you have a symptom, the pill popping isn't working, the Band-Aids that you have at home might not be working, the symptoms escalate, you seek outside of yourself this doctor person, someone who's going to have a treatment or cure, something that's going to fix the problem. And then it normalizes and you return to health because there's no more symptoms. But we know, I know, and as I said earlier, that what happens at this point, if you're simply treating, if the symptoms go away, it actually is worse for you to treat the symptoms if that's all you're doing, because what happens at that point is the problem is still like stewing and growing underneath. And so we're like just going on unassuming about our lives, thinking like, oh, I feel so much better, when in reality, it's like it's just been covered up for a period of time, and underneath, it's still brewing. So when it comes to the surface again, in whatever form that is, whether it's the same thing that comes back worse, or whether it's some other way, like just think of it like it's looking for a way to come out, not to hurt you, not to like put you in discomfort or pain. It's looking for a way to say, hey, you didn't get it. The body is so wise and so intelligent that even in what looks like disease, what looks like pain, what looks like hurt, is a way, like is a message. It's communication, it's information, and it's there for you. It's there for you to pay attention to. So a simple solution, my simple solution to this is education and connection, right? The opposite. And then through education, educating ourselves on what is truly healing, what is true health, and then connection to ourselves and to something bigger than ourselves is going to equal empowered wellness, where you have the power to make choices and to heal. So this is the path of love, life, learning, and healing. In my opinion, like there's nothing linear about it. It's all over the place. Like if I could have done, if this wasn't hard enough for me to put together, I would have made even more squiggles and had it go backwards on itself, because that is often what it looks like. There is no here, I've been here and now I'm going to this side and I'll never be back there again. Usually you are going to be back there again at some point. It might get worse than that. It might get better. You might go backwards, forwards, upside down. Like your path is yours alone. There's no beginning, because we're in it the moment we're born. Like we're in this path of learning, discovery, growing, and figuring it all out. Depending on how you grew up, almost everyone from a very early age started to accrue some kind of trauma, some kind of something that we have to like go back and, there's not necessarily, a lot of times it's not some huge thing we have to fix, but it's something we have to just acknowledge, something we have to just like let ourselves feel and go like, yeah, that happened. and it hurts. And now I'm here. And now I can look as an adult back at that me, that part of me that's still kind of stuck. And I can give that part what it needs now and then bring it into the present. So inner child stuff. But it has no beginning, it has no end. Like till the day you die, most likely you're going to be on this path, hopefully. Another, yeah, another, this is another piece that I thought was a cool way to represent it. That through this path, when we have the love for ourselves, or anything, the love of life, when we have the courage to walk it, when we can forgive ourselves, give ourselves permission to fail without judging ourselves, when we celebrate our wins, when we're creative and let life flow through us, when we're connected to our spirit, our body, a community, then through that, freedom, access to intuition, confidence, and wisdom. So holistic health, I was going to make a cool slide with the three different types of, like the three pieces of healthcare that I was talking about. I didn't make a slide for that, but I'm going to explain it. So like the one is the Western model. The Western model is an allopathic model. It is strictly symptom, and even in preventative, like the little bit of preventative, that it's just preventing symptoms, right? That allopathic means that it's basically treating symptoms, versus holistic health, right? But then there's another in between. There's even natural health, which is way better than the other Western model. But just something to note, that even natural health, even when you go to a naturopathic doctor, it really depends on the person you're seeing, because all health practitioners, just like all bus drivers or taxi drivers or lawyers or people, postal workers, like everyone's different and brings their own flavor to it. And in that individual choice, something matters more to one person than it does to another, right? Like if you've been to a yoga class with different people, like they vary so vastly, to the point where if you went to one of them, you may never have gone back to a yoga class unless you knew that there could be many different people. So when we going back to that, like, so natural health care, if you're going to someone who has a holistic approach, a very holistic approach, then that is good, then that is great, and that is holistic health. But what I have seen with a lot of natural health practitioners, acupuncturists, chiropractors, naturopathic doctors, even, like a lot of them fall under natural health to me, and they aren't actually looking at the whole picture of the person. Holistic health is taking into account that you're a unique, individual, complex being that is not going to be a one size fits all for most things. Sure, there are a few things where if you have a headache, taking ginger, most likely, if you take it in a correct dosage, most likely is going to help a lot or make it go away, even migraines. But there's something else to look at there. So when we look at holistic health, we're really peeling back. We're like acknowledging that we are a physical body. We are a mental, emotional, sexual, spiritual, relational, energetic person, being, organism, whatever you want to call it, that we have a past, a present, and a future, and all of those things affect. We're multidimensional. And as we look at all of these layers, we put together a truer image, a truer idea, understanding of who a person is and where issues are coming from. Usually it's not as simple as one stream of like, oh, it's coming from this one thing that happened. Usually things are more complex than that, depending on, especially if it's chronic. But when we're looking at things from this holistic perspective, we're going to, guess what? We get to treat symptoms too. So you don't have to stay in pain. We can treat symptoms, but we're also going to look at this bigger picture. We're going to see the whole intricate person so that we can see what's going to treat that person better. And you're playing like the biggest role in it because you are the manager of your care. So like, say you do need to seek out different kinds of practitioners, which is absolutely fine because we have to educate ourselves because it takes time to do that. But the idea is that you're going to manage all of those things, that you get to be empowered to make the choices of what feels right and where something comes from and what you want to explore in that. And that's truly empowered health when you're taking the lead in that. So the 5 tools that I wanted to share with you guys today, that we're not going to literally do these tools today, but the 5 tools that I wanted to talk about, and then we're going to do a little bit of practice with one of them, are these. So embodiment practices is number 1 on my list today. And that can incorporate a whole list of things, one of which includes dance, movement, any kind of explorative movement is great, but it can also be something as simple as just literally practicing ways to be in your body. Because many of us are coming from some kind of trauma, whether it's an everyday lived kind of trauma or one big incident or something from childhood that you've covered up and don't really think about. Regardless of what that is, like, it becomes, for many people, it becomes harder. And because of that disconnection piece that I talked about earlier, it becomes harder for us to be in our bodies. We're so used to using our minds for everything, having to think, very precisely about schedules and electronics and, production and whatever the thing is, things moving so quickly that it's harder to be in our bodies. And so that again is a really big source of the disconnect. And when we're disconnected from the body, we're not really living in the present moment. Even if we're thinking in the present moment, if you're not feeling into your body, if you're not having that lived experience of who you are, then truly you're not in the present. You're probably living a little bit more in the past, which would be a little bit more depressive thinking, or in the future, which is probably even more the case for most people, which leads us to a place of kind of like bordering on, if not fully into anxiety. So embodiment practices can be just right now, if you're wherever you're sitting, if you just take a minute and kind of make a better seat for yourself, if you need to, like if there's anything you could do to adjust yourself. And then with your feet maybe flat on the floor or wherever they are, just having an awareness. So I'll do a tiny, like a short embodiment practice right now. So if you feel comfortable, you can close your eyes. You don't have to. Do what feels good for you. Just try not to be, if your eyes are open, try not to be looking around or even at the screen. If you're going to keep your eyes open, try to look downward or just at something. without letting the eyes move. Actually, we're going to start with that. So, being in a comfortable place, just with your eyes open, we're going to do first this piece of kind of scanning around your space. So, looking to your right, looking above you, looking down, looking underneath your seat if you can, looking in front of you, over to the left, looking behind you. So as you look, you're giving your nervous system information. So and you're giving yourself a sense of safety because you're just looking around and you're seeing, oh, there's nothing that's there that's going to get me. So now after you've done that, I'm going to just let your eyes wander around until you find something that they want to hang out on. So then just notice, let your eyes look at that thing that they landed on. And you can name that thing in your head. Shiny green leaf or whatever it is. And then maybe let your eyes drift around again. See if there's something else that catches your attention and do the same thing. Perfect pink bead. Let's name it for yourself. And we're going to do that one more time. Letting your eyes land. And naming that thing. And now, if it's comfortable, close your eyes. And if it's not, let yourself just gaze at something without moving the eyes. So now we're going to bring your attention into your body. And see if you can be aware of what your seat, what your pelvis feels like on whatever you're sitting on. Just let yourself really feel that, the support of the seat. And take a breath and let yourself feel what it feels like to breathe. What parts of you move when you take in a deep breath? What is that physical sensation for you? Now we're going to, one more thing inside your body, just scanning and notice any sensation, physical sensation in your body. And just an example, physical sensations are not feelings, but they're things like cold, hot, prickly, tingly, fuzzy, warm, heavy, light, stuck, swirly. Just notice if you have any sensations that you can notice in your body. And allow yourself to just use your awareness, go into that place and feel that thing and name it for yourself. Sometimes when you bring your awareness to a sensation, it will shift and change. It might even move. And then you can place your hand on your heart And another hand on your belly. And then just move the hand, one or the other or both. Just move that hand on your belly or on your chest just a little bit so you feel that sensation. And just notice what that sensation is like for you. And you can let your hands like just kind of move over your body some, maybe on your arms or your hands or your thighs. Just really being aware of the felt sense. And take a deep breath. And then exhale through the mouth. Relax the jaw and do that 2 more times. Deep breath in. And letting the movement slow down and stop. 1 more deep breath. And again, just notice in a place of stillness, notice what you notice in your body. And slowly begin to, when you're ready, let the eyes flutter open. Not just a tiny practice, but something that you can incorporate into your day, into your like morning or evening or at any point in the day, noticing like if there's an urge, like, so now I'm kind of going back into the dance movement piece, but if there's an urge for your body to do something, to move into a particular position, to get under the covers, to move into child's pose, to hug a pillow, to punch a pillow. Like there's whatever, just noticing. And another really nice time to bring awareness, like where you can practice embodiment, is if you notice if you're having a particular emotion, if you're having a strong emotion, you can bring awareness to your body in that time without needing to do anything, but just noticing. Like oftentimes there's a place in your body that you can feel some sensation going on that's related to whatever emotion is coming up. And so just naming it, becoming aware of it, can change it and allow it to maybe show you something, or in the least allow it to flow away, to move. Yeah, because emotion is not meant to be something for us that we are like hang on to. If there's a heavy emotion, generally speaking, it has to do with either there's a lot more there that hasn't been uncovered, that's kind of hiding still, or something we're just not allowing ourselves to feel fully. We're not allowing ourselves to listen to that communication that's coming from it. So moving on to number 2, I'm just calling this rhythm, but there's so many different ways that like a natural rhythm shows up, and in a true way, not something completely like random or ambiguous, but like the circadian cycle, the way that the sun comes up, the sun goes down. The moon cycle is constantly changing in that 28-day period. And that affects so many things. It affects our cycles. And then there's so many different rhythms. There's the rhythms of the seasons, that there's a wisdom in this, and in the even if we didn't believe that there was a wisdom in these cycles, there's a rhythm, a natural rhythm there that is bigger than just you or me. That is bigger than just what I want to do today or next week or something I might put on the calendar. There's a rhythm there that has weight to it, that carries with it a greater authority, than, sure, I can make something happen on a particular day at a particular time. But if we can line those things that we schedule up with the rhythm, we're going to be doing ourselves a better service because there's something bigger here. And when we don't line ourselves up, we're out of rhythm. And when we're out of rhythm, it's always going to lead to suffering. If we're, for instance, like if we're trying to think of like an example, if we're eating summer food in winter, it's not going to be, if we're eating I know different people have different diets for different reasons, and I'm not going to speak to that right now. But for instance, if you're eating a lot of raw foods and cold raw foods and salads and things like this, and cold smoothies, and it's winter where you are, and it's, like really cold temperatures and it's dry, you're not going to do well with that most likely, because you're giving yourself the opposite of what you need at that time. That's coming from Ayurveda, but a lot of it is really common sense. You probably wouldn't do that because in the winter you're going to want to, if you're in touch, if you're connected, you're going to be craving heavier foods. You're going to be wanting more root vegetables and bone broth, or something heavier if you don't eat bone broth, but oils and things like that. So I think there's so much to say there, but that gets into more than we're going to get into today. So moving on to number 3, self-massage. So in Ayurveda, and again, like I haven't really talked about Ayurveda much yet, but Ayurveda is the holistic healing system of India. Out of the different methods or systems of healing that I have encountered in my life thus far, Ayurveda is the only one that feels complete in its holisticness. Like it really does look at all of the facets of a person, rather than just looking at symptoms, although we have the capability of looking at symptoms and treating those as well. But in Ayurveda, one of the things that we learn about is how to take care of ourselves as human beings. And that, like, the daily routine of self-care is called dinacharya. And one of those pieces that in the self-care is self-massage and massaging ourselves with oil. Now, again, like, you don't want to be out of rhythm if it's like, if you're like highly pitta or kapha pitta and you have very oily skin and it's like the hottest part of the summer and you live in a tropical climate, you're not going to need to slather yourself with oil. But most people are going to need some oil, especially women, because especially women as we get a little bit older, because we are moving into, there's so much more to say about this too, which is going to get into a different workshop, but let's suffice it to say that there's a lot that comes from touch and massage. We get like an intelligence, we get a lot of information, and we give ourselves love. So in Ayurveda and Sanskrit, the word for oil and the word for love are sneha. It's the same word. And so if you think about it, if you haven't thought about this before, it might not make sense to you, but oil has the qualities of like a hug, right? It's cohesive. Like oil, if you put oil and water together, the oil goes together and it stays together and it nourishes and it keeps things protected. And so in a way, that is a lot of what love is. So when we massage ourselves with oil, we're doing many things. One, like I said, we're gaining information about our bodies. Our bodies are giving you feedback, like giving us feedback, but we're also like learning from, what do you feel? What's there? What does the tissue feel like? You're also giving oil to yourself, which is love. And by putting that oil on your skin, you're feeding your largest digestive organ something that's pure, not lotion, which has a lot of stuff in it, but just something that is pure and easy to digest. You're also helping to create or like not create, but to protect the microbiome in your skin. That really, that's our first, in a way, that's our first physical form of protection in the body, is like the microbiome that's all over you. And if you wash yourself too much, like if you use soap all the time and you're washing off your natural oil, you're also washing off those bacteria, and we want them there. We want to like have that to protect us, so that as things that we don't want try to come in, then we'll naturally like just ward them off. So the fourth essential tool for empowered wellness is holistic pelvic care. And this is a practice that was developed by Tammy Lynn Kent, and I've studied with her this practice. It's a beautiful practice that incorporates education of our own bodies and learning through like anatomical learning, and then there's a part where we learn about how to use our own hands to massage the pelvic floor, how to use our breath and energy to learn about ourselves in a deeper way, to be grounded and rooted, to address trauma that could be coming from sexual experiences, could be coming from birth, could be coming from just our own minds, like and beliefs that we have about ourselves, or so many, that for so many women, the womb area, the pelvic area has been and is a source for pain and holding on to things. And I think that is one of the reasons that we have so many, it's so prevalent. There's so many issues that for women around reproductive systems. It's a much bigger picture than that, but the disconnection, the not having that connection with ourselves and using that as a place to store pain instead of love, and the disconnection sexually from ourselves. There's along with a lot of other things that we'll get into in a future workshop. But holistic pelvic care is a wonderful practice that you can use on yourself, and you can also go to a practitioner. Right now, I'm doing holistic pelvic care sessions over Zoom. So that's all I'm going to say about holistic pelvic care. It's amazing. It's energetic. It's helpful for balancing our feminine and masculine within ourselves. Like as I lied, I'm going to say one more thing. as women, as humans, we all have a masculine and a feminine side. Some women have more of a female side, but some women have more of a masculine side. It doesn't really matter. The point is, we need to have a healthy feminine and masculine established within ourselves for ourselves. Like, think of it like your core self, your parent, like for yourself. Like, we have to be that for ourselves. And so if we're not, then we're either going to lean too far in one direction or another, and one side will get diminished, and sometimes it'll come out in the form of like toxic feminine or toxic masculine. And it's gonna cause issues. And if it's showing up, if that's a thing for you, like for instance, right side masculine boundaries, like feminine left side receiving. Those are just two examples. There's lots of different ways that they can manifest. But when we have trouble with either of those areas, it's going to show up in our physical body, our biology, and it's going to show up in our relationships. So holistic pelvic care is really putting, like, rather than going to someone to see, like, hey, can you, like, rather than getting a pap smear, not to say that you shouldn't get a pap smear, but rather than just doing that, you actually have tools where you can learn a lot about your body. Number 5 is nervous system regulation. So just to know, like, the embodiment practices have a lot to do with the nervous system regulation piece. Within nervous system regulation, we have a lot. It's a very big topic. You've got the nervous system itself, which is constantly taking in information through your senses and constantly processing information. So unless you make a choice to stop, to slow down, to like put a pause button, to do something that is not where you're slowing down the input, unless you make a choice to do that, then your nervous system is constantly firing. And now, because we are constantly on screens, and like I mentioned before, like we try to cram a lot into our days. We, like, as women, have a hard time saying no. We've got a lot of capability of like cross brain working, like multitasking, but it takes a toll. So unless we're doing things, unless we're aware of how the nervous system works, how we are, personally, how your nervous system, how you're wired, what your tendency is based on your biology and also your upbringing, you learn a lot about how you tend to respond, what it looks like when you're in fight, flight, or freeze, or fawn, or just, there's so many different pieces. And then not only that, so there's the education piece around the nervous system, but then there's like being able to respond to what your nervous system needs, being able to give in to that. So that's part, embodiment practices are very helpful with that. So many different things are helpful with that. But just learning what that spectrum is for yourself. One of my main teacher for working with the nervous system has been Kimberly Ann Johnson, and she's got a couple of books out. One of them is called Call of the Wild, and her classes, like, she's got a few different classes. One of the classes she teaches over and over different themes is a jaguar class, and really is about getting in touch with yourself on a primal level and what you need, and being able to express like the full range of what you're capable of, instead of just being in a little box and doing, being controlled by what we should do. So like nervous system regulation, education, learning how all of that works is essential, I think, for empowered wellness, because we need to be able to know when we've had enough, we need to be able to know how to take care of ourselves on that level. I'm going to give you 5 more really quickly. A spiritual practice, and I mentioned this earlier, but like having a spiritual practice, I think, is severely underrated. Like, it is not given enough attention in this day. Like science and technology is given like such a big amount of importance in our days and in our lives. But I really think that can be at a disservice to us as human beings, which I believe we are spiritual beings. And so it doesn't matter what you call that you connect to, or how you connect to it per se, but that you have a way that you are daily connecting to what feels like your source. It might be through meditation, it might be through prayer, it might be through silence, it might be through being in nature. But it's really important that you have something that grounds you into that place where you recognize how big you are, and how divine. Number 7 is mindset. So like there's so much to say around this, but we have to be a little bit more elastic in how we think, and recognize that everything we think is not necessarily true. But just because you think it, you should still question it. We have to be honest with ourselves, aware of our thoughts, but not letting our thoughts define us, aware of our emotions without letting the emotions define us, and allowing ourselves to be completely loving and non-judging around where we are, even if where we are isn't where we want to be. So we have to be able to hold this big window of, I'm here, but I want to be here. I want to improve these things. And that's going to be amazing. And I can use that to my advantage, that I know where I'm going, and not let ourselves fall victim to whatever the thing is right now that is uncomfortable, that oh, poor me, or I'll never make it, or being victim necessarily means that there's something or someone to blame. So that's another part of mindset. Like when we're in a place where we are thinking of ourselves in terms of a victim, then it's really hard to be empowered. So we have to kind of be willing to take a very honest look and engage in practices that ask the questions that we might be uncomfortable to find out the answer to, but being willing to go there so that we can uncover the thing, so we can rewrite the script, we can rewrite the story, and recognize that we're not victims. None of us are victims unless we choose to be. But it's very hard to heal if you're a victim. That's one of a big thing of, we have to flip that upside down. Number 8 is Ayurveda. And it could be something else if there's something else that you subscribe to. But for me, it's Ayurveda and this holistic science of life. And within this, remember earlier I mentioned number 6, spiritual practice. And then here I have holistic science. So out in the world, oftentimes spirituality and science are separate, but in truth, to me, they live together. They are part of the same. So Ayurveda does incorporate spirituality into the science of holistic medicine. So it's a beautiful practice. It's so rich, so deep, so many pieces to that. Within it, there is the ability to know yourself greater, to know other people in a bigger way, to see the world in a different way, to learn how to take care of ourselves, to learn how to heal things, to heal symptoms, to heal the root cause, to kind of do it all depending on what is needed. Number 9 is therapeutic body practices. And that is movement, but this is from a different perspective. So having the ability or like the know-how, like who do you need to talk to, where do you need to go to learn this, like therapeutic body practices. Like for me, that looks like part of that might be dancing, but I use a foam roller a lot, not for the reason that most people use foam rollers, but in a therapeutic way where I'm not like ironing out soft tissue or muscles, but more using it in a way that I'm looking to communicate with my body and relax my nervous system and rewire how things fire, and strength training and stretching, like separate from the foam roller, these kinds of things, but in a way that is very therapeutic. So therapeutic meaning it's what your body needs to move on to the next place that it needs to be. So if you have an injury, or if you need to have more flexibility or more strength in a particular area, it's like whatever is the needed thing, like adhering to the what is proper alignment and best practices for a body, having some way to do that. And then number 10, I put absolute honesty, which is very important for being able to engage in empowered wellness, because we have to be honest enough with ourselves that we can call ourselves out. And because a lot of things that are self-inflicted, a lot of things we create without knowing we're creating them, because we're not willing to get honest with ourselves. Like, what's the habit that you need to stop? What's the habit that you need to create? Like, what's the thing you need to forgive yourself for? There's so many different pieces. Like, what do you need to know? What do you need to believe about yourself? Like really letting yourself go deep in that space. So those are 10, one more than I said, but I wanted to give you guys those. And there's more. I'm sure there's more. I'm going to be, so this is an introductory workshop to kind of showcase a lot of the different things that I want to teach, that I want to showcase and help you experience. So the next workshop that I'm going to do is going to be a 3-hour live workshop, and it's specifically going to focus on Ayurveda and the nervous system. So eventually, like, and we will touch on other pieces that kind of fit in. So like, if you remember, some of those steps, kind of a lot of things bleed into one another. Like self-massage is part of Ayurveda, embodiment is part of the nervous system. There's a lot of overlap. So we're going to be like using this 3-hour time period to really have an experience, like very, very workshoppy. We're going to learn, but also have an experience with these practices and go deeper into the understanding of Ayurveda and the nervous system. So the next workshop that I'm going to be doing is Sunday, July 9th at 3 p.m. Eastern time or 12 p.m. Pacific time. And it's going to be the first in a series of workshops that I'm going to be doing. So like there's the ones that I have planned out, like moon cycles, menstruation, perimenopause, menopause, aging. So kind of a lot of going a lot more into detail specifically on those feminine issues that so many people, like you hear about, like oftentimes, like whether it's the problem of menstruation or the problem of perimenopause or the problem of menopause or the problem of aging, but just how all of those pieces, like how we got there, what's causing it, how we can get out of it, how we can reframe the whole thing. So there'll be a lot a lot to do in there. Holistic pelvic care is going to be one of the topics. So in that, we will dive into what that is and do some of that work. We won't get into we'll talk about some of the internal work. We may or may not actually get into doing any of the internal work, but more about like education, anatomy, self-massage with the pelvis, things that we can do to help heal some of the issues that we might be learning about in the previous workshop, and trauma healing and that whole masculine feminine balance piece that we talked about. And then embodiment. So that one will be more geared, still nervous system, but really working with dance and therapeutic movement. And so those are some you have to like look forward to. And again, like the next one is July 9th. And just to kind of let you know to some of there will be a way eventually to sign up for the series. And I'll send you, if you were a person who registered, as long as you registered for this and you didn't just hit the Zoom link from somewhere where it was posted, but if you actually got an email for this with the Zoom link, then you're already on the list, and I'll be sending out information about how to sign up for this. But if you didn't, then definitely get in touch with me so that I can get your email and get you the information on how to sign up. And just to kind of showcase some other ways to work with me outside of workshops, I do one-on-one holistic health and healing sessions via Zoom. And that can look like different things. It can be an Ayurvedic or holistic health consultation. So in that way, some people are definitely more interested in Ayurveda. Some people like don't know what it is. Regardless, it's a holistic health consultation. One way is to work with me in that way. Another is and this way is like a 30-day plan. So it's like you'd have a specific reason probably that you were coming. There'll be a plan for creating changes in your life and creating good habits that are going to move you forward. Will determine what your constitution, what your dosha is, and learn more about that and what your body needs in this particular season of your life. And you will get recommendations. When it says like a 30-day plan, but the recommendations come in the form of diet and lifestyle and also herbs. And then there's always the opportunity to purchase like an herbal formula too. And then I also do work with people on a 3-month basis where you sign up and we meet every week so that you can really get some things accomplished within that time period with more hand-holding. There's urgent holistic care is just if you have something that, maybe you're interested in doing a bigger holistic health consultation, but you have something that's really pressing right now that you want help with, and you'd rather not, play it out and it lasts so long and you just want to get it, then you can sign up for an urgent holistic health consult, and then you get in a lot quicker, you get your results a lot quicker, you get top priority on my schedule. And then holistic pelvic care is just doing those sessions in and of themselves is separate from that, is another way that I work with people. So yeah, here's a little write-up. This is better than what I said probably because it's all written up. So for women of all ages, holistic pelvic care is designed to evaluate, restore balance, and enhance functionality of the pelvic bowl, empowers women with tools of basic women's health, including fertility and healing reproductive issues and trauma. So it's a super amazing practice. So I'll leave you with that. We'll switch over to question and answer, and then also all of these, you can find out about things on my website too. If you wanted to sign up for something, you could just go to ayurvedamedicinemama.com or sacredspacehealingarts.com and find me that way. So I'm going to stop sharing.